Hello and welcome. Now, many of us have aspects or parts of ourselves that we wish to change. In fact, for many of us, there are things that we have struggled with for years and years, decades even, trying to change them or to be free of them, but with little or no success. And many of us keep looking for a magic pill that we can take and voila, our problems are solved. Well, I have good news and bad news for you. Which do you want first? Do you want the good news first or the bad news? Well, let's start with the bad news. As far as I know, and I could be mistaken, there is no magic pill. It doesn't exist. So let's forget about looking for one. Now, the good news. The good news is actually so good that I'm gonna call it the great news. The great news is that liberation exists. You can succeed at becoming free from even the deepest, most stubborn, most long-term, long-lasting, worst struggle or, being stuck that you might have dealt with or you might be dealing with even currently. Yes, you can be free. That's the great news, isn't it? That's actually super great news, isn't it? Now, the question is, how do you get free? How do you get unstuck? How do you liberate yourself? Well, there are 2 steps to this. Step one is to know thyself. Step two is to allow the divinity within you, your higher self, your innate, whatever you wish to call it, to transform you. This has nothing to do with any religion, and you do not have to adopt any particular faith or religion or set of beliefs for this to work. It just does. It is part of the human system, as is the very problems that you also face. They are also part of the human system. So the solution and the problem both come inbuilt, okay? The divinity within you is the duality complement to the dark side within you. The shadow that plagues you and has brought you all so many challenges and everything. It has an opposite. And that opposite knows exactly how to deal with it, how to deal with the shadow. That opposite not only knows exactly what to do, but knows the best way to do it, the timing, the how to, the sequencing, and it's so powerful that it cannot fail. And all that is part of the system. All you need to do is activate it, because it never forces its solutions upon you, because the one thing it always respects is your free choice, your free will. And that is why you have to activate it, give it permission. Now, in this particular lesson, we shall focus only on the first step, knowing thyself. And I must tell you that this is the hard part. Step 2 is not hard. In fact, you don't have to do anything in step 2. Step 2 is done for you. You just have to flow along. Give permission and flow along. That's step 2, and we'll get to that. But step 1 is the hardest part. Actually, it takes the shortest part, a time of your time, but it's also the hardest. And it actually might even be the hardest thing that you've ever done. But it's not physically difficult, okay? It's not difficult to think or to understand or to actually implement. That's not where that difficulty comes in. In fact, in that aspect of it, it's very simple. The difficulty comes in it because it requires your honesty with yourself. Most of us find it very difficult to be honest with ourselves, isn't it? Have you noticed that? And that is precisely why things remain subconscious. That is because of this inability to be honest with ourselves. That is why we push things into our subconscious, why we hide them from ourselves. Are you understanding this? The very act of hiding something from ourselves because we are afraid to look at it or we don't want to face it is exactly what makes it subconscious. It's what makes it puts it below our awareness. Do you see what I'm saying? We walk around wondering, why can we not see our own beliefs? Why can we not seem to access our subconscious and so on? Well, we can, but we often are unwilling to. We're unwilling to do it, and that's the problem. We block it off. We do it. It's not that the subconscious is hiding something from us or trying to play a trick on us, really. It is that it is we who are blocking it from our own awareness. And this is a very, very, very important point to note. Anything, I repeat, anything that you wish to know, and you truly give permission to yourself to know, anything that you've done that with will always rise to the surface of your conscious awareness. Anything. There's nothing that is denied from you. And so this journey that you're about to embark on is one of allowing yourself to see what you have previously kept from yourself. Do you understand this? It is a journey of allowing. Say this aloud to yourself. Allowing. I'm not kidding. Stop this recording for a few seconds or even a few minutes if you need to think about this, and just say the words verbally. I need you to say this verbally so that you can hear the words, so that you can hear your own commitment as you say them. So say these words with me, please. Repeat after me. I am now willing to allow myself to know myself. I now give myself permission to see into my subconscious, to see what I previously hid from myself. I understand that this is a journey of allowing what I had previously denied to come forth into my awareness. Have you said those words? Okay, good. Let's go on. So what we just said is our first declaration. And we shall make many more as we go on forward. Okay, we're going to start making declarations, by the way, claims. You can call them claims or declarations. And we're going to start making them aloud so that we sort of form contracts with ourselves, with our body, with our mind, with our emotions, with our system. Okay, so whenever I say this aloud, seriously, even if you feel embarrassed, you just have to do it. There's no two ways around it. You can't say it silently in your brain. That doesn't count. Okay, it doesn't count. You gotta manifest this with your voice. Okay, your voice is so powerful. So you have to manifest this with your voice. So don't just like say, oh, I'm just gonna think it in the privacy of my thoughts and that's good enough. It's not good enough. Okay. You gotta make it great, and you have to manifest it with your voice. Okay, so I have something important to say at this point. Okay, I don't want you to waste your time, and I don't want you to waste my time. And there's only one way that you can waste both our time, and that is if you do not do the simple exercises that we have here. Okay, this means that if you're requested to say out a declaration, you must say it. This is not a theoretical exercise here. We're not interested in knowledge for the sake of knowledge. We've read enough books, we've attended enough seminars, we've gone to enough retreats, and those have been good. That's great, but that's not what we're doing here. So let's not waste both our times. And when you are asked to declare or to say something aloud, please do so right away. Right away. Don't save it for later. Just do it right away. If you're in a place where you can't do it, you feel you can't do it, then pause this thing and continue when you go to a place where you can. Okay? Whatever you do, you just have to do it. And you have to do it at the time when you're asked. You can't save the declarations and say all of them later tomorrow. And meanwhile, you go on with the, in quotes, theory. This is not theoretical stuff. Okay? This is practice. And I mean it. Don't just say empty words. You gotta mean it. You have to mean it. This is not just about meaningless recitals. You have to mean what you say. Okay? Now, you might wish to change the words. Okay? Maybe you're not comfortable with the way I phrase them. Okay? So, and that's fine. You can change the words. You can alter them if you like to a point where they feel good for you. Okay? That's fine. You can change it. If, for example, you find that I'm asking you to open a door, let's say into your subconscious, or into, to give permission to something that maybe you might not be ready for, or maybe I'm asking you to open a door wider than you're comfortable with. Okay, you can scale it back a bit as well. Yeah, you can change the words, you can scale it back a bit, no problem. Okay, so because this material is not meant to hurt you. However, if you scale it back, then you need to make a note to yourself that you did. So that if later on you find that you don't have the information you require from your subconscious, you will realize that you had previously chosen to scale it back earlier on. And so at that point, you can decide to just, go full throttle, to just go all out. Okay? So don't let this material hurt you. But on the other hand, don't just this is not something you just listen in silence and go back to your life. I mean, it won't work if that's what you do. So you have to be active. Good. So this leads us to 2 simple rules. Rule number 1, and this is called the permission rule. The subconscious doesn't do anything against your wishes. Okay? It may appear like it is sabotaging you. We always say, oh, my subconscious is sabotaging me. It's not. Trust me, it's not. It is always following your truest wishes. It is always protecting you, enabling you. It's always being 100% true to your belief system. So until you give it permission to do something, until you ask it to, it will reveal nothing that you're not ready to hear or to see. Okay? You have to say, okay, I've been previously not ready, but now I'm ready. And then it's going to do it. Okay? Therefore, make a habit of talking to yourself, asking for what you need and giving permission for it to happen. Giving permission for whatever the subconscious needs to do to make it something happen for you, whatever is needed. Sometimes I just give it a blanket permission. I'm like, I need this done or I need this revealed, and I give permission for absolutely anything and everything that is related to that. Whatever needs to happen, I give permission to be done, even if I was previously scared of it or whatever, or I had. You understand what I'm saying? You can allow it to go and do whatever it takes, okay? Or you can say, go slow, take it easy, okay? But we'll get into the how-to steps and everything. We'll actually go step by step. I'm just giving you some simple guidelines now, so you don't have to memorize all this stuff. Anyways, for example, you may have a request that if the subconscious is to honor, it might mean that for it to honor that request that you gave it, it might mean that you have to face a fear that you had previously been running from, or you might have to change the way you relate to someone, maybe someone in your family, and so on. Therefore, when you give permission to your subconscious, you literally are allowing the subconscious to do whatever it takes, even if it means leading you to face that fear or to change that relationship that you have, and so on. That's what it might mean. That's what it might take. I mean, are you able to see that your relationships, for example, I'm just giving you an example here. I'm not blaming relationships for everything. This is just an example. Are you able to see that your relationships and your life as it is today, how can I say this? Your relationships are the structure by which much of your life is currently supported. Do you get that? I'll give you an extreme example just to illustrate this. Maybe there is someone in your life, okay? This is just an example, that you fear, and that you let that person bully you around, okay? Whatever they say, even if you don't feel it's right for you and it's against your integrity or whatever, you do it anyways because you're afraid of this person. Maybe you rely on them. Maybe you need them to put a roof on your head and to provide for you, or whatever it is. Okay. Now let's assume that you ask your subconscious to unleash your sovereign authority so that you may stop being a victim in your life in many areas. Maybe not even necessarily with this person in particular, but you just want to stop being a victim. Okay, and you want to now start being the author in your life. So can you understand that the subconscious will have to bring this person to you with a request that you do not like, and you're going to have to finally begin to say no to this person's bullying? Can you see that? And can you see that when you start to say no, your relationship with this person will have to change? And this person may not like you so much anymore because it's like you're now rebelling. You are cooperating before, and now you're rebelling. They might even feel rejected and abandoned. Can you see that? And If you depended on this person for your safety or provision, can you see how this may feel like you are facing a major fear in your life? Maybe a fear of being abandoned or not having enough, to live on without this person. So these are the kinds of permissions that may be required of you when you ask your subconscious to change your life by revealing to you the beliefs that keep you stuck. That was rule number 1. Now let's talk about rule number 2. Rule number 2 is called the sincerity rule. You have to mean things. We talked about this before. We touched on it just earlier. Your intent has to carry weight. Okay? Don't just say stuff that you don't mean. Don't just recite stuff. Okay? You have to be genuine. You don't have to use force. You don't have to go like, I swear I'm gonna do this. You don't have to do that. Okay? And you don't have to chant, and you don't have to keep repeating stuff like affirmations over and over and over again. You don't have to do that. Okay? You don't have to struggle with it or push or use force. But you have to be sincere when you talk to your inner being. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. Okay? You have to mean things. You have to be sincere. Okay, let's move on. We're done with the 2 rules. The subconscious will bring you anything and everything that you desire as long as you request it and as long as you allow it. Request and allow. Now, what does this tell you? Request and allow. What does it tell you? This should tell you that you cannot then be judging what comes forth. Can you see that? You cannot start picking and choosing what is, in quotes, good and bad, and then screaming at what is bad and trying to hold on to what is good. If you do that, you are literally canceling the permission that you gave the subconscious. Can you see that? Okay? Does that make sense? Request and allow. Now, if you request and then you allow and then you start complaining and trying to stick to one side and kill the other side, you're not allowing. You have to flow. You have to practice detached witnessing, the art of allowing. And that is what I would like us to talk about here, by the way, for this is of utmost importance. I want us to focus on a few words here. I'm going to first read out the words. Some of them are phrases too, but I'm going to read them out, 4 of them. And then I'm going to ask you to say them out aloud with me again and again. And then we're going to explain each one. Okay. So let me first read them out. Witnessing. That's number 1. Witnessing. Number 2, detached allowing. Number 3, no agenda. Number 4, know thyself. Okay, so now say this aloud with me so that it sticks. We're going to go through the exact same list again. Number 1, witnessing. Number 2, detached allowing. Number 3, no agenda. Number 4, know thyself. Did you say that aloud with me? Okay, let's say it again. But you don't have to scream. I don't mean that, say aloud like scream. You can just, say it in a comfortable, normal tone, as long as you use your voice box. Okay? Use your voice. That's what I mean. And we're going to say it again, okay? Number 1, witnessing. 2, detached allowing. 3, no agenda. 4, know thyself. Good. So those 4 steps just described all that you have to do once you ask the subconscious and give it permission. That's all you got to do. All you got to do is ask the subconscious for something, give it permission, and then do those 4 things. Yeah, witnessing, with detached allowing, with no agenda, simply to know thyself. Okay, so let's talk about each of these words. Number 1, witnessing. Witnessing means exactly what it sounds like it does. It means to witness. Imagine you're sitting somewhere outside at a cafe or a sidewalk or by the beach or standing by a tree at the park or whatever. And you're watching life go by. You're just watching, you're witnessing. So here we mean witnessing how your thoughts flow, how your feelings flow inside of you, how your consciousness works. You do not try to force anything or block anything or change anything. You simply watch. You witness your thoughts, your feelings, how your psyche is flowing, how it's moving. Okay? That's all you do. You just watch. And that brings us to the second part, detached allowing. This is an extension of witnessing or to witnessing. And this is simply clarifying how we witness. In other words, we're talking about how do we witness. Okay? When you witness with detached allowing, you aren't engaging with what you see. You aren't judging what you see. You're just witnessing it. Again, back to the example, you're sitting outside at a cafe or in the park or whatever, maybe even on your balcony or something, and just looking at life go by. And a dog runs by, a woman jogs past, you look up, the clouds float by, you look in the wind and the piece of paper drifts in the wind, and then the truck in front of you on the highway takes a turn. Just random stuff is happening and you're just witnessing. You aren't jumping in and becoming engaged with any of the phenomena. You're not getting into the truck to try and change where it's going and then stopping the woman and asking her how she's doing and messing with the dog or the paper in the wind or the clouds. You're not doing any of that. Yeah, you're just witnessing. You just watch. You see how it works. You're observing and noticing how it works. You listen, you look, you feel, you smell, but you don't engage. You just take it all in, all of it, yeah? Without choosing any. You don't say, I don't want to see the clouds and I don't want to see the dog, but I definitely want to check out the woman jogging, okay? The whole thing is one canvas, so it just floats by, right? You don't choose. And then you don't resist or attach to any of it. You don't say, I want the woman to stick around and I wish that dog could disappear. You don't do that, okay? You just take it all in. You witness. Literally, you're just noticing how it works. Does that make sense? Good. So let's go to the next one. No agenda. Again, this is an extension of the previous idea. You're not witnessing so that you can change things. No. Forget about change for now. Forget about it completely. I don't care how bad your problem is. Just forget about trying to change it right now. Okay? Yes, the change will come later. That's later on. But it's not even your job to change. Your personality or your ego is not what will change you. Your personality at the moment is facing the problem, and it seems to think it doesn't know how the solution, isn't it? So there's no point trying to engage the personality in the change in the first place, because it doesn't know how to. In fact, it's not its job. Something else will do that for you. The personality's job is just to witness, to notice, okay? It is your higher self, that divine aspect of you that will change you, okay? So forget about change when you're witnessing. Forget it completely. I don't care how bad things are. Just forget about changing them. Just witness for the sake of witnessing. Okay? Witness for the sake of witnessing. You have absolutely no other agenda other than to witness. No agenda. You aren't doing this for change. You ain't doing this for liberation. In fact, whether or not you change or how you change isn't your business. If it was your business, you wouldn't be stuck. You would have known what to do a long time ago. The fact that you are stuck and seeking help means you don't know. So stop pretending that you know. Stop pretending to be able to change. That is the problem, taking the change upon yourself. It just makes you go round and round in endless circles. So now commit to witnessing with no agenda at all, except to simply witness, to see how things work inside you, how your consciousness flows. Number 4, know thyself. Now, although there is no agenda, there is a result. And the result of this witnessing with detached allowing and no agenda is that you shall know thyself. Okay? It will just happen by itself, I mean. It will just happen by itself. Think about it. If you're just witnessing or looking or watching something, sooner or later you're going to realize how it works, isn't it? You don't have to put in effort. All you do is open your eyes. and you'll understand it sooner or later, you know? You don't have to do something. Okay? Great. It will just happen by itself anyways. You will finally see how the machinery of your consciousness works. But you have to shut up and just watch and see. And you will see. That's it. And the more you practice this art, the more it will become effortless and automatic, and soon it will become a permanent way of how you live. You will eventually fall in love with yourself. You will be so amazed by how your consciousness works that in all affairs of your day, even as you go about your daily trivia and do whatever you do all day, just the normal stuff like, brush your teeth, get out of the house, go do whatever you gotta do, play with your kids, look after your kids, have your romantic time, whatever, play your games, whatever it is that you do, you will realize that you've become an automatic witnesser. You'll realize that over time, as you practice this, realize that you've become very self-aware in a relaxed state. You won't even be putting effort. It'll just sort of be happening behind the scenes. And after a while, you'll realize that you become aware that you're aware that you're aware. Then after a while, you realize that you become aware that you're aware that you're aware that you're aware. You understand? The awareness will just keep deepening by itself through just practicing it. Okay, that's all. Okay, you will somehow become a silent witnesser who learns about its consciousness all the time. It'll just become a way of life eventually. At the beginning, it might be a bit tricky, but like with everything, it becomes second nature. It's just like learning how to drive. At the beginning, it's tricky, and then afterwards, you can even drive absent-mindedly. Yeah. So, and with this practice, after a while, knowing thyself will start to replace conditioning. Right now, conditioning might be running you like a machine, a program, and you don't even notice it. But after a while, you start to see the program, you start to see the machine, and after a while, you'll even be free of the machine. Okay? And then after that, it will really start getting interesting. I mean, just think, once you're free of the machine, of the programming, and then what? I'll tell you what, it gets super interesting after that. So great. Now that we have just described what we've just described, you now have what I call the super duper cool tool that will liberate you. Believe it or not, that simple stuff that we just went through is what's going to liberate you. See, it's not rocket science. It's very simple. Anyone can do it, isn't it? It's the super duper cool tool that will liberate you. This is a tool that will allow you to know thyself. And once you know thyself, you will automatically transform. Yes, automatically transform. You see, the minute you see through a subconscious belief, that belief becomes conscious, isn't it? And then the minute it becomes conscious, it loses its hypnotic power over you. I'm sure you can understand that. And at that point, you suddenly have true and effortless choice to keep that belief. You can choose to keep it if you want. And it will be a conscious and effortless choice if you choose to keep it. Or if you realize, what, I don't need this belief anymore, you can just as simply drop it or modify it or replace it. Once it has become conscious, you'll be surprised how easy it is to do with it as you want. Knowing thyself is the key to change. Before you know thyself, these beliefs run you hypnotically like a robot. But once you see them, all of a sudden, you're the master. Now, I think we can now come to an agreement that to change, you must first see. Does that make sense? To change, you must first see. It's like in the Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. Before an alcoholic can change or begin to recover, they must first recognize that they have a drinking problem. They must admit. As long as they're in denial, they will not recover no matter how much struggle and trials that they go through. But the minute they admit, the minute they say, yep, I got a drinking problem, the journey to recovery starts. You see? And this is why knowing thyself as you are, and I repeat, as you are, not as you wish to be, or as you are told you should be, or as society expects you to be. No, but as you are. Knowing the self as you are is the first step to change and liberation. So now, let us add one more phrase to our collection of declarations, our claims. So, are you ready to say something aloud with me? Okay, say this aloud with me, please. I now allow myself to know myself as I am here now, not as I wish I was or as I was told I should be, but as I am. I have every right and validity to be as I am, exactly as I am now, and that is okay. It is okay to be as I am now, exactly as I am, and with all my perceived flaws or shortcomings or misgivings. I am human and I am unique, and it is 100% okay to be as I am, exactly as I am right here, right now. And I commit to knowing myself as I am here now. And I do so by witnessing my thoughts and feelings and internal motions of my consciousness with detached allowing and no agenda except to simply witness myself and therefore automatically know myself. Great. So let's move on. Now, maybe you are here because you wish to reprogram or change your subconscious so that some part of your life can change for the better, so to speak, isn't it? I'd like to give you an analogy here, that you might have heard of before. And we shall work with this analogy to achieve the changes that we desire, the changes that you desire. Here is the analogy. A life can be thought of as a story. I'm sure you've heard this before, the story of your life, that kind of thing. Okay? So we're going to look at our lives as if it were a story, the story of our life. Okay? Now, a story is literally the account of a series of events from a person's perspective. In other words, you tell your story. Maybe somebody else telling your story. Maybe like your husband or wife or your kids or your brother or sister or your mom and dad or your grandparents, whatever. They may tell your life story differently from their own perspective, right? So that's basically a story. What I'm trying to get at here is that the story doesn't stand by itself. There is no independent story. The story is actually very much linked to a person's perspective. The key operative word here being perspective. In other words, how you see things. Okay? This is what we're about to deal with, how you see things. We're not going to deal with we're not going to be dealing with life as if it's a independent, objective reality that, like some kind of standard reality, and then there's you separately. No, we're not going to deal with it like that. What we're going to look at it as is that there is no independent, objective reality. Instead, what there is the reality that each of us independently sees. So we're actually going forwards dealing with your perspective. Do you understand that? So even as we talk about your life or your life story, we're dealing with your perspective, how you see your life story. Okay? Have you got that? Now, follow along here. Follow along. Listen very carefully. To change our lives, we must change our stories. Does that make sense? Now, to change our stories, and remember, sorry to interrupt, remember, we said before that our story is all about how we perceive it. So we're talking about your perception here. So every time I say story, just in your mind, remember we're talking about your version of it. Because like we said, your parents or grandparents or kids or husband or wife or friends may tell your life in a very different way. Their story about you, it could be very different from your story about you. Do you understand? And even your own story changes. Like the way you saw it like 10 years ago could be very different from how you see it now. Okay? So I'm going to start again. To change our lives, we must change our stories. To change our stories, we must change our perspective. Our perspective of the events. Keyword events in our life. Remember, story is made of events. To change our perspective or our perception, if you wish to call it that, you can call it perspective or perception, okay? We must now listen very carefully. We must do two things. Number one, we first must become fully conscious of how we currently perceive our lives. In other words, we must become conscious of our beliefs. Again, start to notice the connections here. The way you currently perceive your life is exactly the same as your beliefs. You cannot perceive different from your beliefs. Am I coming through? I don't know. Am I making sense here? Your perception is a direct reflection of your beliefs. Direct. If you can put down your story on paper and you read it back to yourself, you'll be directly looking at your beliefs. Does that make sense? Okay, number two. After that, next, we must reframe our perspective for the better. Reframe our perspective for the better. And again, once you change your perspective, it means you're changing your belief. Are you getting this? Perspective and belief, they go together. You cannot see differently from your beliefs. So when you change one, you change the other, literally. Does that make sense? Okay, great. Now, we are now going to embark on the first part, becoming fully conscious of how we currently perceive our lives, becoming fully conscious of the beliefs that run our lives. That's what we are going to first do, obviously, right? You remember even from the very beginning, we said there are two steps here. First, we must know thyself, and then we can change ourselves. So that's the first step. So we shall bring the beliefs from the subconscious to the conscious. We shall make them conscious, okay? Now, before we start, let me say one very, very important thing. Get this. You do not need to make a super massive change in one go. You don't, please, stop trying to look for one big bam change, bang, and everything is changed, okay? It could happen that way. Sometimes it does, okay? But it's not necessary that it happens that way. In fact, although it could happen, it isn't necessary. In fact, it isn't, most of the time, it isn't the most effective way to make change. The easiest and usually the most effective way to change is to make small but meaningful changes, marginal changes. These small changes are the ones that, by themselves lead to great transformations. It's just like the way water works, like water, drop by drop, water erodes a rock. I mean, look at the Grand Canyon. It was carved by water, drop by drop. Okay, and sometimes, or just sometimes you have 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 drops and nothing seems to be happening, and then all of a sudden those 10 drops make a big waterfall. Suddenly, they cascade and like a snowball rolling down a mountain and becoming bigger and bigger. Okay, so that's how these things work. So please do not consider any change to be too small. Okay, don't be in a rush for the big ones. They'll come. In fact, they'll come at some point. They'll start coming so quick, you'll wake up one morning and not even recognize part of you or of who you were like a few weeks ago. Okay, so take it easy. In fact, cherish even the smallest, tiniest change. Okay, which means you also cherish even the smallest, tiniest insight that you get as you go along. The smallest, tiniest aha moment. The minute you go, aha, I see. And it's so small that you're like, It's a bit small, but but it's a bit small. No, I have a little mini party because you've seen that little one, okay? Because the smallest things that you notice about yourselves are the ones that actually link the big ones. They're like a hinge on a door. You can have a very big door, but the hinges are very small. But the minute you take out the hinge, the whole door falls. You get this? So now, please join me in making another declaration, another claim. So say this aloud with me. I cherish and appreciate the small changes, insights, aha moments, and points of clarity about myself. They are all welcome, and I am grateful for them all. Great stuff. Now, also before we start, I keep saying that before we start, but I just want to get everything covered properly, right? I would like to remind you that what we're about to do requires the art of mindfulness. Mindfulness is simply awareness. That's it. Mindfulness is awareness. Just a different way of saying it, which makes us realize it a bit different, but it's almost the same thing. Mindfulness is witnessing. Witnessing, awareness, mindfulness, the same. Now, we already spoke about this earlier, but I wish to remind you again that what we are doing here is being mindful, cultivating awareness by witnessing our thoughts and feelings and internal motions with detached allowing and with no agenda except to simply witness ourselves. Remember we say that? So I just wanted to remind you that again. And this requires a commitment. You have to be committed to this process, right? And it requires patience. Some days nothing will seem to be happening. Other days you'll be over the moon by how much good stuff is happening. But it's a lifestyle, it's just like life. Some days are just the same old, and other days are just, whoa, my goodness. So, but I promise you this is going to get exciting, okay? But just stick with it, okay? Make it a lifestyle. I want to say that one more time because it's so important. A lifestyle, okay? Another very important thing that I'd like to say is that everything is interconnected. And because of that, you should develop the skill of looking at your life holistically. For example, you might be having money issues that you wish to fix. Okay, that's normal. That's cool. Maybe you need to increase your income so that you can look after your family. Okay. Now, your first thought might be to head straight for the money issue. You might be like, I'm going to look for all the beliefs I have about money and I'm going to fix them. What if I told you that this might be the wrong approach, that this approach might not yield any results, or it might, but that's just the tough, long way of doing it. Okay. Now look at this. Play this game with me. For example, maybe you do have a money situation, just as an example, and maybe that money situation could actually be a reflection of a relationship's belief structure. A belief structure about relationships, or a belief structure about your self-worth. And maybe the money is simply doing what it needs to do to prove that belief system about relationships or self-worth. Do you see what I mean? Maybe, and this is just an example, maybe, and I'm going to use some random character. Maybe random character X, this person called X, Mr. X or Miss X. Maybe she doesn't feel too good about herself. Or maybe she believes that she's not a good provider, or something like this. Or she's not supported. And so maybe the money is simply doing whatever it needs to do to reflect these beliefs. So do you see that it doesn't make any sense to go straight for the money? Because no matter what you do, it's still going to do whatever it needs to do to make your life congruent with those, make Miss X or Mr. X's life congruent with those beliefs. So what Mr. X or Miss X needs to do is to sort out those relationship and self-worth beliefs actually, and automatically the money will sort itself out to reflect the new belief structure. See how it works? And the trick is, Miss X or Mr. X may not know prior to this that the money is related to a belief problem. So the best way is just to do this holistically. Just look at your life in general and because as long as it's unconscious, you don't know where to start. So you just have to sort of look at your life, as a whole. See what I mean? So again, for now, we must have no agenda except to know thyself. Don't try to solve a particular problem. Not at this stage. Later, yeah, but not now. For now, we are simply aiming at curing blindness to ourselves. We are simply aiming at knowing ourselves. That is all. No more, no less. Leave the problems as they are for now. Just if you've been having this problem for a long time, another day won't kill you. So don't try to fix or target anything in particular at the exclusion of other things. This is a holistic approach. It is the only way we shall discover the hidden interconnections that drive our lives behind the scenes. And finally, before we begin, there I go again. Before we begin, again. Okay, one more thing. And one more thing. Steve Jobs used to love saying that. And one more thing. And one more thing. You must get a pen and notepad for this. Or if you want, you can use a journaling app on your phone or your iPad or whatever. Or you can use a journaling app or a document on your computer. If whatever is most comfortable with you. I just personally prefer pen and paper. The point is, you must, I repeat, must write down your insights. Do not, I repeat, do not attempt to do this in your mind only. You simply must write your insights down. I suggest you get a small notebook, something very small, those ones that can fit in your pocket or your purse or handbag or whatever it is that you carry around, something small, pocket size, let's call it that. Okay. I suggest you get a small notebook and a pen that you can always have near you and with you. But again, you can do it digitally on your phone or something. But I can't stress how important it is that you write down your thoughts and your insights, at least initially. At the beginning, you must. It's not an option. This is one of those things that I'm going to say, if you don't do this, you're wasting both our time. Okay? So at least at the beginning, later on you can get rid of it. But at the beginning, until it becomes a lifestyle, you need to do this. Okay, once you become good at it and it becomes a habit, a lifestyle, you can do away with the journals, digital or physical or notepads or whatever. And it's up to you. Some people just like journaling for years, so it's up to you then. But at the beginning, it's not up to you. You have to do this. You absolutely must at the beginning. Okay, otherwise you risk having your mind play tricks on you and continue blinding you. You see, you want to see what you have previously not seen. That's the point of these exercises. And that means you need to get out of your mind, because as long as you stay in your mind, you will keep running through the same tracks, the same errors. Okay? But when you write stuff down, you sort of kind of like get out of it, Have you noticed that sometimes you write things down and then when you look at what you've written, like 2 weeks later or 2 months later, you're surprised? Have you noticed that? Have you ever noticed that and gone, wow, did I do this? Did I write this? The reason why I'm asking you to start writing them down is precisely because of this kind of phenomena. So you need to do this, okay? So let's get on with it. I shall now we're getting on with it. Now there's no more one more thing, okay? What we're about to do now next is I shall ask you a bunch of questions. And these questions are designed to help you see your story more clearly as it is now. Now, you may add your own questions. Mine are simply a guide, an initial guide. They're not complete, or they're not the ones that you must answer. And you may not maybe need to answer all of mine, but I'm giving you a guideline, okay? At the end of the day, it's up to you. You need to sort of see what questions make most sense to your life, okay? Remember, you are not your story. You see, if you become overly identified with your story, you will tend to get defensive and lose your ability to see your story clearly. And if you can't see it, you can't change it. And therefore, you need to be 100% transparent and honest with yourself. This is the part we said was difficult. You need to be 100% honest with yourself, transparent with yourself as you answer your questions or these questions. And you don't bother get defensive, or don't bother try and find excuses, like, oh, I did that, but you know why? It was because of, we don't care about that because of. It just doesn't matter. Forget about the excuses. You ain't fooling no one. So just get on with it. This exercise has only the goal of knowing thyself, not explaining thyself. Okay, we're not here to explain thyself. We're here to know thyself. Okay, see the difference? We are interested in knowing. We are not. Nobody is interested in the explanation. We simply wish to know ourselves as we are now, not as we wish to be, or as we were told we should be, or as society tells us that we should be. All that stuff doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what society is saying, what your best friend, what your mama. It doesn't matter what anybody said. Okay, it doesn't even matter what you're telling yourself that you should be. None of that matters. Okay, just put it all aside. We're here to simply know ourselves as we are, regardless. Okay, and we aren't here. This is very important. We aren't here to control our emotions and thoughts. Okay, as you answer these questions, you'll have certain emotions and certain thoughts. Don't try and control them. Okay, don't try. We shall treat the good, the bad, and the ugly thoughts and emotions as the same imposter. They are all the same imposter. None is better or worse than the other. None is preferred. All are welcome. None are denied. Okay? Do we have a deal? Do we have a deal? Okay, great. If we have a deal, great. Let's move on. Put your witnessing hat on. Put your observation hat on, and start to notice. See the patterns and themes and nuances of your story. Okay? Get your pen and paper. And here are my questions. Remember, these are just sample questions to get your mind jogging. So feel free to add your own or change the questions or whatever. And once more, I must remind you, actually do this. You have to do this. Do your best at this, at least. Do your best. How can I put this? Do your best at not being self-critical. Don't be self-critical. And if you find yourself criticizing yourself, don't criticize yourself because you criticize yourself. Okay? So I think that's quite funny. Don't judge yourself. And if you find yourself judging yourself, don't judge yourself because you judged yourself. Okay? So you gotta have compassion with yourself with this process. Okay? You have to remember, we're talking about allowing, permission and allowing. Okay? So at this stage, we don't care about judgment, about evaluation. No, we simply wish to see. So make another declaration now, aloud, please. Say this with me, please. I shall not shut down, attack, deny, become defensive, excuse, criticize, evaluate, or judge myself. I am open and allowing of all that I am as I am now. And I am true and honest with myself, to myself. Great. So now, the questions in various categories. Here we go.